Hey everybody, and welcome to the Run with My Son show. And we are a bunch of dads who refuse to let the headwinds of life push us off that path to a heart-to-heart, lifelong relationship with our sons. And we do that through something we call Runversations, deliberate conversations that we have with our sons while we're out being fit and running together. Today, got an important topic. Maybe not the world's most fun topic, but it's absolutely a critical one in our day and age, and that is discussing scary stuff in the news with our kids. So I got my solar eclipse glasses here, just as a visual reminder that things happen that to you and me might be novel and different, but not necessarily scary. While in the minds of our kids, they could absolutely be terrifying. I mean, when you think about what that means with the sun disappearing in the middle of the afternoon, that could be a scary thing, right? Right, dads? And you know what? Maybe you remember from your own childhood something that may be laughable now, but really put you on edge at the time. And just to give us all a laugh here, I'll invite you now to go ahead and share those in the comments below. Write something in there if you could that maybe at the time spooked you, and made you think that the world was falling down. But perhaps now, as an adult, you see it for what it is. Nothing to be afraid of at all. That's what we're going to address today. And these are conversations, dads, that maybe we don't want to have, but we absolutely need to have. Because, and I'll tell you why, if you don't address these things with your kids, they're going to get addressed anyway and on somebody else's terms. They're either going to directly see this piece of media in the newspaper headlines or on television, on the internet, on their phones. If nowhere else, then they'll hear about it on the playground from their friends. And who knows what kind of language they're hearing? Who knows what kind of emphasis on different things they're hearing? It's not an environment that we control, and that's no guarantee that they're going to hear it in a reassuring kind of way. But if they hear it from you, dads, their heart's going to be guarded and protected, and you're both going to bond, through the shared discussion of it. So I'm going to dive in here and give you some great thoughts that were shared with me. I want to thank right here from Sandra. She pointed me to a link that has some great tips, and I'm going to share them out here with you. Things that we as adults, parents, can do to help our children when scary stuff is being discussed in the news. And this is an evergreen topic. It might seem like this week's got the scariest news ever. But we were thinking the same thing last week, weren't we? And probably thinking the same thing 3 weeks prior to that. And back in 1984, it goes all the way back to the beginning of the news, honestly. And so, dads, this is a topic I'm sure you'll be interested in and finding a way to use. All right, so number one, all adults should model calm and control. Our children, they're taking their emotional cues from us. And if we're not collected and controlled, they're not going to be. They're going to be, leaning towards fear, leaning towards anger, panic. These are things that we can control in ourselves, and we can model it for our kids. Number two, we want to reassure our children that they're safe, if that's true. And in almost every circumstance is going to be. They're seeing something on the news that's happening across the world, across the country, or, it's more likely than not that whatever they're seeing doesn't directly threaten them or those they love. So we want to do a great job reassuring them that they're safe, the people you love are safe, they're going to be all right. And number three here is one that I got advice from a lot of people, from Brandy, from Dave. Some others have shared this, and it popped up into my consciousness too. I'd forgotten all about it. But it is to remind our kids that trustworthy people are in charge. You think about all the emergency workers, police, firefighters, doctors, the government. There are people who are taking care of us. And here's a special quote that goes along with that from somebody you probably know, Fred Rogers. He says, "When I was a boy and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, 'Look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping.' To this day, especially in times of disaster, I remember my mother's words, and I'm always comforted by realizing that there are still so many helpers, so many caring people in this world. And it's absolutely true, dads. Just by pointing out to our youngsters that there are people taking care of us, that is reassuring to know that doctors and emergency workers are going to be there. Even if something doesn't directly threaten me now, the worry that a fire could happen at my house, that a tornado, hurricane, earthquake, you name it, that fear can linger in the back of someone's mind. But when you remind your kids that there are helpers out there who immediately jump on this and help people, that's going to give them some reassurance. So let's get Fred out of the way here. All right, moving along. Number 5. I lost count of my numbers, dads. Sorry. We want to tell the truth. All right, we don't want to downplay. We don't want to overplay. You know what? This is a terrible thing. You know, sometimes adults can be very unkind to other people. And we don't want to, make up false stories that, that only happens far away. That only happens, and make these sweeping generalizations. Unless, of course, that's true. We don't really get hurricanes, up in Connecticut. That's not true. We don't want to say something like that. But, you might be able to point out that tsunamis only happen on the coast and not here in the middle of, Oklahoma. So stick to the truth, stick to the facts. Don't try to speculate. And this is something even for adults, journalists, responsible journalists on the news, they're not speculating because they know that it can induce panic, even in their adult audiences. Why would we want to induce panic in our kids by speculating? So don't take guesses. Don't try to invent the story. You, Dad, just tell them the truth, tell them the facts, and we're going to get to in a second how you want to do that in an age-appropriate way. But we're gonna stick to the facts and tell the truth. Here's the next one. We want to be careful not to stereotype people or countries or just categories of folk. Now, that's one that is so easy to fall into, I suppose. But we don't want to perpetuate that kind of cycle. If we see something that others are doing, that doesn't mean we're going to do the same thing, dads. We don't want any bullying. We don't want any teasing. So we're not going to stereotype because our kids are going to follow our stereotypes. Are they not? And we don't want that perpetuated. We want them going back to school and talking to their friends who doesn't look like them, because the bad person they saw on television perhaps does. We absolutely are not going to do that, dads. And so make certain and make clear that, that we're talking about people, and we're not talking about a race. We're not talking about a country or people who live in a certain place. So that one I think speaks for itself, but it is worth reminding here. We want to keep those explanations developmentally appropriate. So there are certain words that your youngest sons are going to not understand that maybe your older sons will. There's, a longer list of questions maybe that the older children are going to have that the younger, ones, didn't even occur to them to think. So be patient, be able to answer those questions, and use the language in your judgment that fits the appropriate model. It might make sense if you've got a range of ages among your children to discuss this, one-on-one with each of them. You can start the conversation collectively as a group, but you follow up and you watch for the emotional signs in your children so that you can appropriately address each one of them. And so this thing we saw in the news yesterday, how are you feeling about that? And talk to them one-on-one so that they're each assured that Dad cares and understands. All right, we want to maintain, dads, a normal routine. Just because something crazy is going on in the world elsewhere or even somewhat close to home, we're still going to have bedtime at 8 o'clock. We're still going to have dinner. Children, even more so than adults, and this is true for adults too, but especially for children, that routine is everything. Our life is literally structured around it. We want to maintain those rituals, routines, and things. We still want to kiss everybody goodnight. We still want to do all the things that our children have come to expect, so that they are reassured. If there's any divergence in that routine, there's going to be doubt, there's going to be fear and worry, even in a complete absence. Hey, I'm back. Don't know what happened there. Had some kind of streaming issue. But anyway, dads, as I was saying just moments ago, we want to maintain those routines, those rituals and habits that we do every single day so that our children are reassured. All right, jumping into the next one, we want to observe our children's emotional state. So in the days, hours, maybe even weeks to follow, depending on the incident on the news, emotions can come up, can bubble up to the surface a little bit later after the fact. And so we want to be able to watch for those and appropriately address them. Letting our children know that it's okay to feel emotions, to feel angry, to feel scared, or just upset, but to do so in an appropriate way. We want to make certain that our anger doesn't become violence towards somebody else. And we want to make certain that because we're feeling nervous, that doesn't mean that we don't talk to people. And we want to be, sensitive to that and observant of that. Something that the dad squad isn't maybe necessarily known for. The mom squad might be a little bit better than us on this one. But keep your eyes open for that emotional state. We want to be aware of those children who are at greater risk just because of history or conditions that they might have, or just, again, it's a matter of being sensitive. Someone who may have experienced the touch of something scary earlier in life, violence, or they come from broken homes, perhaps they've experienced some of these natural disasters, are going to have a different reaction to news of these sorts of things than maybe somebody who hasn't and has a more innocent history. So watch for that and be aware of that also. You want to make an outlet for them to come to you. So if you're not in your child's life around the clock, maybe you're just a 2 days a week kind of a dad just because of circumstances, you want to make certain that your child knows that, hey, even if daddy's not here because daddy's away on a trip or daddy's someone you only get to see on Saturdays, I want you to know that you can pick up the phone and talk to me anytime you want. When we do see one another, I'm here for you and I want to talk to you. So let them know that you're there. Keeping those lines of communication open. And you know what, dads? A last piece of advice here is to monitor your own stress level. Just like the very first item on this list, when we want to model for them calm and collected response to news, even ongoing, beyond the conversation that you're going to have, the Runversation that you're going to have with your son, watch your own and monitor your own stress level, because in times of stress, our emotional state, our actions change, and our tone, and everything is being observed by our sons. So, dads, there you have it. A topic that you might want to bring out on your run as a Runversation, maybe better handled, seated at a table so that you can read his cues and see his emotional states. But as always, you want to follow it up with some reassurance of love. Hey, now that we've talked about that, let's go do something fun. Let's go, hey, why don't we go for a run together? So we want to encourage you to check out runwithmyson.com if you haven't already downloaded your free Couch to 5K training plan that you can use together. No matter what your fitness stage, no matter what your age is, this is great for kids ages 4, 5, 6, 7, and on up. And you can go out and run together to make these connections so that the conversation that you have magically connects when it's mixed with some physical activity. All right, Dad Squad. Well, thanks for joining us. Thanks for bearing with our technical difficulties today. We're going to stitch this video together and post it up there. But no matter what, be safe out there. Always wear your solar eclipse glasses. And just because the eclipse is over doesn't mean you can stare at the sun now. So hope you're playing it safe, and look forward to catching you next Friday and every Friday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard, right here at facebook.com, runwithmyson, at runwithmyson.com, and even at YouTube if you want to go check out, binge watch all of our back episodes. All right, have a great week, dads.